Oh, hey, it's me there. Welcome to the Josh and Tyler Show. We're doing another remote show for the five worst movies of the year. I get to rant. I'm just kidding. These movies are crap. As always, we are here with Tyler, who will pop up in a minute. But we are talking five worst movies of the year. Now, why five and not 10? Because I only want to crap on five movies. Five very specific crapping piece of fucking shit movies that I hate these movies really much. I don't like them. They should go away. They should not make them. They should, whatever makes them stop. Tyler, what's up?
What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and there is no perfect movie, in case clicking on a worst movies of 2020 video didn't prove that enough already. Thank you, Josh, for inviting me to recall just how shitty some of these things were. Now, don't get me wrong, the fact that so many movies got delayed this year meant that there were less movies to be pissed off about and more to appreciate over time. I did say in the best of the year video that with very few options when theaters were still open, it meant that there were more hidden gems for me to check out. So I can't really complain that much, but nevertheless, there were five movies in particular this year that just drove me insane. And also, I was blown away by how many people actually enjoyed them for what they were, because sometimes with my worst of the year lists, there are some unpopular choices. Movies that have a high Rotten Tomatoes percentage, that have a high amount of respect for people on Twitter or Facebook. They absolutely love it, they preach it. And look, if you like the movies that I mentioned in this video, good for you. I'm glad you enjoyed them. I just wish that I did. And the fact that I'm putting these movies on this list to begin with because I legitimately don't like them should go to show that no matter what, there are always going to be movies that we disagree with each other on. And that's totally okay. So long as you are allowed to speak your mind without anyone telling you not to be able to say that whatsoever. And considering I don't do that for you guys, you can shut the hell up and let me do that for myself. So, with that said, let's get into the top five worst movies of 2020. There are some dishonorable mentions, but really, they're not even worth pointing out. So,
Let's. I don't have any honorable mentions. It's just these five. Just these frickin' five. So let's just jump right into the list. That was awkward. You know what's more awkward? The five movies I picked. Tyler, give me your number 10. Number 5. What am I saying? Numbers are hard. Numbers are hard, specifically at 11:11 at night. That's a very odd specific time.
let's just fucking get this over with. Number five is a very popular Oscar choice among film nerds everywhere in the world, and I kind of understand why, but as a whole, I don't think that the Trial of the Chicago 7 was good. Mostly because of the Aaron Sorkin formula, which, don't get me wrong, every director, every writer, every creative person in Hollywood has a certain formula that they're attached to. They always have, they always will. It really comes down to which formulas you as an audience member enjoy or don't. And me personally, I've gotten really sick and tired of the Aaron Sorkin formula where the main character is a self absorbed douchebag who fights with the second smartest character in the movie who legitimately accepts and understands that he's not as smart as the main character, but he never backs down because he is clearly an intelligent person. Meanwhile, the older mentor supports and respects both of them while also putting them down for being fucking idiots. We saw that in A Few Good Men. We saw that in The Social Network. We saw that in Steve Jobs, Moneyball, West Wing, Newsroom, Molly's Game. And now this. And the worst part is, he takes a lot of true life stories, does the exact same character tropes with those true life stories, and actually makes them seem formulaic and boring. Which is really weird, because the true life tale of the Chicago 7 or Chicago 8, whatever you want to call it, is a legitimately fascinating court case. And to its credit, there are some good performances. Most of the cast members do a good job. Sacha Baron Cohen is a good Abby Hoffman. The guy who played Jerry Rubin, Mark Strong, I believe, was legitimately really good. No. Jeremy Strong is Jerry Rubin. Really good, really funny. Mark Rylance as the older mentor. Really good. Joseph Gordon-Levitt as the prosecutor. Actually has a character arc. If he gets nominated for an Oscar this year, that would be a great accomplishment. But outside of that, the rest of the cast members are stuck with the most basic Aaron Sorkin monologues that are incredibly self-indulgent with the writing. I know a lot of people say his writing is so good because that's how you wish you could talk in real life, but I don't know. Based on how self-absorbed so many of his characters are, I don't really feel that way. But outside of that, like, Sorkin's direction has no real visual style to it, so it's completely unremarkable. The editing is decent enough, but I think it's just there to compensate for the fact that he really doesn't have much of a visual style. He doesn't even have all those long takes that you would see in West Wing, Newsroom, or even in the Steve Jobs movie, which gave it a lot of energy towards it. Plus, I'm just gonna flat out say it. If you close your eyes listening to Eddie Redmayne and Sacha Baron Cohen arguing with each other, it's basically just a pissing contest between a horribly ADR'd Jesse Eisenberg, because really, it does feel like Eddie Redmayne is in this because Jesse Eisenberg wasn't available. And when you listen to Sacha Baron Cohen as Abby Hoffman, it's Christopher Walken. It's a pissing contest between Jesse Eisenberg and Christopher Walken, and that's not nearly as exciting as it should be.
Number 5 worst movie of the year for me. I was very much anticipating the Kelly Richard Reichardt, however you want to say the name. Sorry, I butchered your name. First Cow. This is a bleak 4x3 oddball movie that did not meet my expectations or even match up to the trailer. The trailer looked like a man was bringing a cow over to a small civilization and they experienced the joys of dairy. So the vegans can rejoice because this movie is bad. This movie is this movie is nothing like the trailer. It's a really bleak piece about characters being horrible to each other, and there just happens to be a cow. It's not really well photographed. It's grainy and 4x3. The dialogue didn't really stand out. The script didn't blow my actual mind. It's based on a novel, The Half-Life, which I now will not read. I've been reading... What have I been reading? Oh, that's right. I've been reading the Arctic Patrol mystery. I'm sure it's better than the book that The First Cow is based upon. Let's just read some excerpts from me for here. Marr sucked on his pipe, sending out a billow of smoke. I think so. He opened the closet, which was the rank with the odor of clothes. Old clothes. I missed a word there. Look at me. A few tools were stacked in the corner. The boy squeezed in. A narrow crack between the floor and the bottom of the door would allow enough air to keep them from suffocating. Well, they come. I will get them as they leave as soon as possible, Rex said. But I honestly don't know what more to say about this movie. It's just really boring. Everything is poorly executed. Even the sound is off. It's not good. It's just not good. And it's 2 hours. It's 2 freaking hours.
And number 4, I don't even have a cruel insult or sarcastic comment about The Old Guard because I did legitimately want to like this movie because Charlize Theron is not only the star of an action movie, but is also producing it. And Theron never gives in a bad performance. In fact, none of the main actors anyways, are really even all that bad. Harry Melling, who you might know as Dudley Dursley from Harry Potter, embarrasses himself in such an over-the-top fashion as the villain in this, even more embarrassing than his performance in Devil All the Time, because he was actually good in Devil All the Time. It's just that the Old Guard's idea of character development is characters sitting in a circle or walking around a business office or sitting in a car telling each other expository stories that are supposed to advance the plot and tell you about the characters. And sometimes that can work in a movie, just not in this case, because a lot of them feel incredibly rushed in regards to what is supposed to make them interesting as characters. And I think that's why there are a lot of flashback montages interspersed with all the expository monologues, some of which, if you've ever seen the trailer, you know for a fact didn't actually make it into the movie, which I don't understand. It's a Netflix movie. They can pause it. You don't have to worry about them getting bored. Little things like that, including, this part really pissed me off. The Old Guard's idea of gay representation is that two men love each other. And that's it. Their sexuality is not only the most interesting thing about them, it's the only interesting thing about them. This is crappy 90s writing of gay characters, guys. Like, I don't usually get pissed off about representation. Like, if you have a gay character in there, great, no problem. Just quit making them being gay the most interesting thing about them, because it's actually more insulting, if I'm being completely honest. And the fact that Charlize Theron wants to make a lesbian-led reboot of Die Hard, I find even more insulting, because for me, it just promotes this idea that gay-centered action movies can't be interesting unless they're based off of pre-existing source material, which is horseshit. It really is. Like, just make a lesbian action movie. Don't attach a franchise to it to get people to watch it or hate watch it by protesting it and paying money to see it in theaters or on streaming. Like, that's the worst possible thing you could do. I'd be okay with some of these problems if the action set pieces were decent, but they really aren't. It's just the most basic form of, for immortal mercenaries, mind you, immortal mercenaries, there are so many things that you could do. They clearly did not have the budget to do fight choreography where they lose limbs and reattach, or lose blood and then reattach their wounds, kind of like Wolverine in the X-Men movies. Considering the majority of the action scenes are just people walking up to someone and shooting them in a John Wick fashion, without even any of the John Wick choreography that makes it interesting, because it's not just the guns, it's the judo, it's the hand-to-hand combat, it's the weapons. They have all their favorite weapons that they carry throughout the entire movie, and they're used for like one or two scenes tops. It was just such a wasted opportunity.
Coming in at my number 4 is a movie that I had high hopes for. It looked weird and quirky. I wanted it to be really good because I liked the people in it, but it was not. Can you guess? No, just kidding. This is not a video where you guess. This is where I tell you. David Dobkin's Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of the Fire Saga. It's about a brother and sister. I think it's whatever. Two people who know each other. The point is, I woke up one morning and thought, oh look, it's Will Ferrell in a comedy dressed like a Viking playing weird, strange music. This looks enjoyable. It is not. People will tell you it's quirky and it's fun, and I'm glad you like it, but I did not. I was hoping for something that I could laugh at, that I would enjoy. I was hoping for a lot more. Rachel McAdams is just weird. Will Ferrell is just weird. Dan Stevens does this bit, and then it's like, oh, okay, you showed up and you got a paycheck. Pierce Brosnan is in it as a father who's like, nah, you can't make music, Will Ferrell. So they get picked to go to Eurovision because they don't have any acts and they want something to lose. So they go and they do this weird, strange song, and everyone's like, yeah, you make it to the next round. And then they're like, no, Rachel McAdams must go on solo. And then they eventually play together. And you think there would be a charming aspect to the two of them playing together, but not really a lot of chemistry between the leads. And you think the jokes would be like funny with the awkward, dry comedy, but it's not really funny. And then I thought, oh, Eurovision is always fun. I enjoy watching the strange performances. The strange performances weren't even enjoyable. The way they did the cinematography on these and the sound design, it was really loud and the talking was really quiet. And I hate the when they do that in movies. Just balance it out. I call it the Living Daylights effects, where the music is like, and talking is like, it's not fun. It doesn't make you feel good. It just is awkward as hell. And you're like, well, that happened. Okay. I'm here. I know a lot of people like this movie, but I just, nah, nah to the nah, to the nah, 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 nah. Back to the Hardy Boys book. Muscle Man stopped after they dismounted and led the quartet inside. The interior was sparsely furnished, yet warm and comfortable.
Number 3 has had a lot going for it. It had a great, unique artistic director. It had a terrific cast. A cast full of actors who you could tell wanted to do this project to distance themselves from some of the popular superhero blockbusters that they're known for. They want to do something more smaller, intimate, something darker, and I appreciate the hell out of them for that. This could have been a good movie, but despite what people will tell you on Facebook, The Devil All the Time is not a good movie. I will say this, it's proof that Tom Holland can play a nitty-gritty tough guy, and I'm hoping that Cherry, or as Apple TV likes to call it, Cherk, can be a much better example of that story-wise. You have other actors like Sebastian Stan, who is completely unrecognizable, Harry Melling, who's over the top but in a really good way, Bill Skarsgård, who's as great as always, and Robert Pattinson. Close your eyes and listen to Robert Pattinson in this movie. You wouldn't guess that it was him, and that's the best compliment that I can give. That alone is impressive. The reason it's so high up on this list, even though there are a lot of good things going for it, is that the movie either doesn't think it has enough time to flesh out these characters or doesn't think that we as an audience have enough time to care. I'm not entirely sure what the case is, but they explain the movie to death with so much voiceover narration from the original author of the book, which I don't even understand considering he didn't actually write the script. To me personally, I felt like my intelligence was being insulted by the fact that they are explaining things that were already explained before or explained right after he says them, which just takes the tension out of it. I mean, great. You get to point out that someone is carrying a gun with blanks, which means that they don't know for a fact that they're about to shoot something. Even though after he narrates it, they have a close-up of the box of blanks and a guy putting the blanks into the gun and giving it to somebody else. And I just sat there, I'm like, either narrate it or visualize it. Don't fucking do both. I hate when movies fucking do both. It's an insult to people's intelligence. It's the reason I didn't like The Irishman. I mean, great, you have all these spectacular visuals. You have all these great actors. Just show them acting. Just show them performing the story. Don't narrate over everything like we're gonna forget about it in a split second, because chances are we'll forget about it because the narration is the thing that stands out the most. Maybe I'm biased because I hate narration, but I thought it was just used to such a piss poor effect. I haven't actually seen a movie that was narrated in a great fashion since Edge of 17, and that was like 4 years ago. If you don't think you have enough time to flesh out this full story of an ensemble thriller that talks about the supposed origins of evil and why people give into it, if you want to flesh out that many characters and you don't think you have 2.5 hours to fully commit to it, make a fucking miniseries. You're on Netflix.
Coming in at my number 3 pick for worst movie of the season, it was one I was also excited for. Again, sensing a trend here. I thought, oh, it has Alison Brie, and it's got Kristen Stewart. It's got a pretty decent director at the helm. And I was like, oh, we could have a pretty decent Christmas movie. Because for me, there are not too many Christmas movies I love, minus Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, and Home Alone. I mean, there's a lot out there, but for me, those are the quintessential holiday movies, wherever you want to quantify it. Home Alone being my favorite Christmas movie, and Die Hard being my favorite Christmas movie that takes place on Christmas. Then Lethal Weapon also takes place on Christmas. And the movie I watched, Avenged, takes place on Christmas. But Happiest Season follows Kristen Wiig and her girlfriend going home to their family for Christmas, but she did not tell them that they were in a relationship, and her parents are very conservative. So she says she's an orphan at 19. That's a joke. They use it a lot in the movie. And she's got her best friend, Dan Levy, Eugene Levy's son, who's funny but very predictable and cliche. He's got some of the best moments in the film. And that's about the positives, I have to say, for the film. It's just a different type of holiday movie. Not really, no. They follow every cliche in the book. They've got the overcompetitive sibling. They have the confrontation scene. They've got just everything falling off. The person who's supposed to do something but can't do it. And then you've got the kids who are too nosy. Honestly, this is not great. I heard Alison Brie was in the movie, so I wanted to watch this. Get Hard was a better comedy. It was funny. This is not. You can see the jokes coming a mile away. The script just didn't really dazzle me at all. I do think the lead performance by Kristen Stewart is about all that stands out in this film. And it's not great. I wanted it to be really good because I want to have a new Christmas movie to add to it, but it is not. It is not very good, and I don't want to see it ever again. So, yeah. It's also the slowest movie I've seen all year. It literally nothing happens for most of the movie. Nothing happens until like the third act. It's just like, here's some characters, but we're not going to develop the characters. They're just going to be the same way. These kids are going to be hyperactive. The sister's going to be competitive. And that's the character development you get. Things might happen.
Number 2 is the most recent movie that I have ranted about up before the Christmas break, and that is Wendy. One guy actually asked me over Twitter before watching my review if Wendy was a worse movie than Pan. And I said no, because to its credit, Wendy is 90% practical on this real life volcanic island compared to Pan, which was 90% a green screen in like 20th Century Fox's Australia studio or something like that. And if you'd rather see Terrence Malick montages of the kids reveling in the fact that they can stay young forever versus these incredibly random rock musical numbers in the 1910s, that's not done in a Hamilton fashion, which means it has none of the creativity or the energy and just comes off as being really, I don't know what it comes across as being. Like, if you prefer Terrence Malick montages and practical effects, you're better off watching Wendy than you are watching Pan. But at the same time, Ben Zeitlin, however you pronounce his name, the changes that he makes to the original Peter Pan story are either unbelievably unnecessary or are never expanded upon aside from a couple scenes or these monologues that come straight out of an after school special, which I keep saying this, which is weird because from what I understand, based on the feeling that I got watching Wendy, it felt like it was a movie about kids, but was actually made for adults to supposedly get adults more enthusiastic about the fact that even though they grow older, they never lose their youthful energy, which is a great message to have. And to its credit, in the first 10 minutes, there are scenes that actually encapsulate that because the first 10 minutes is Wendy as a baby who's still helping out her mother, albeit whether or not she even realizes it because she's a baby, at the family diner that they run to show that even when you're a baby, you're growing up and never losing your youthful energy. Like the first 10 minutes, that's a good movie. That would be a really good short film if, albeit you actually made it clear that it was a Peter Pan story. But yeah, the changes to the Peter Pan story in this were really weird and not in a good way. The incorporation of Captain Hook felt so hastily rushed based on the fact that he keeps changing his motive in almost every scene. It didn't make him feel like a fleshed out villain. The connection that he has with Wendy was completely pointless, at least in my opinion, because in the long run, there aren't really any consequences, long term anyways, aside from Hook. Like, Hook suffers the consequences, but everyone else around him, not so much. At least if there were, I didn't actually feel them in any capacity. To their credit, Devin France is technically doing a good job as Wendy, and Joshua Mack has a lot of fast-paced energy that can make him a really good Peter Pan. But here's the thing, even though they put more emphasis on Wendy, she doesn't really have an established relationship with her brothers. Even though in the original story, she's like a den mother to the brothers, but in this one, they're significantly older than her, and they barely talk to her throughout the entire movie. Hell, Wendy barely even talks to Peter Pan, who is more of a supporting character as opposed to a central character. He's not even Peter Pan. He's just Peter, which actually makes him more boring. Hell, he's not magical. He can't fly. He doesn't have a Tinkerbell. That alone makes this one of the most underwhelming adaptations of Peter Pan you could possibly make.
My number 2 worst movie of the year is going to probably be on Tyler's list. I'm just going to come right out and say it. I did not like The Devil All the Time. I think it had moments. I think it had one really great performance by Robert Pattinson, but the rest of the movie was dry and drudging and overly violent for no particular reason, just because they could be violent. It's a very, very strange film from beginning to end, the way it's paced, the way the music is mixed in. Robert Pattinson is great in it, though. That's about all I have to say. Tom Holland plays a kid whose father, like, murders an animal and then dies, and then his mother does a thing and gets humiliated for chicken livers, and then a preacher tries to, like, assault his sister, and then, like, he kills somebody because there's these hitmen on the road. It's overly convoluted because there's 2 or 3 plots all happening at once, and the point is they'll all intersect eventually. Yeah, I don't care. Tom Holland he's fine. Everyone in this movie is fine. I think the main problem with this movie is the way they pace it out. I think if they focused on strictly Tom Holland's story and the way it interacted, that would be great. And now you'd say, yes, they do. But I don't want side plots where Tom Holland isn't in with these characters. And then some of the scenes just, I don't get it. It seems like there's a lot of filler just mixed in for a lot of this. And it just feels like a weird Oscar bait drama that didn't quite land. It gives me like, oh my goodness, it gives me like, I feel like they're going for a Coen Brothers vibe, but without the fun. And I've never been the biggest Coen Brothers fan, and I know people are raving about this movie. But it's a week after it came out. I mean, we put a video out. We got hate in this thing. Let me tell you, you're allowed to have opinions. I don't like this movie.
Number one is a movie that technically hasn't really come out yet. I saw this at TIFF in September as opposed to New Year's Eve when this comes out on VOD, but nevertheless, I checked it out on a whim, not really knowing what to expect, and what I got was the 2020 version of movies like Black Christmas and Charlie's Angels. Movies that take one side of the gender spectrum, not really treating it on an equal basis, coming across as being really biased, even though that's not really the case. But I absolutely hated Shadow in the Cloud on the same level as Black Christmas or Charlie's Angels, which, to its credit, Shadow in the Cloud has more of a visual style. It has significantly better directing and acting than both of those films combined, which doesn't really say much, but it absolutely is true. There was a lot of potential. In the first 5 minutes, the opening credits had such a stylish sense of cinematography where we didn't show Chloe Grace Moretz's face, building her up as a badass action hero, and with all the promo pictures that make her look like Ripley from Aliens, that's obviously what they were going for, and that part was very effective. But 95% of the movie is her ranting to sexist men abort this one plane because in the 40s, allegedly every man on planet Earth was sexist, which that alone is just complete bullshit. I mean, if every man in the 40s was a sexist pig, how would women's rights have progressed to the level that it is now? Because if all men were pigs, it sure as hell wouldn't have happened for that reason. And here's the thing. If you're going to make a movie about sexism, why would you make one where 95% of it is just ranting against men, where male audience members are not going to see the movie for that exact reason, and female audience members who go see it are only seeing it just to hear a repeat of their preconceived, simplistic notions of such a very complicated real-life issue? Which means that when they go see it, they're not going to learn anything. They're just going to listen to what happens on screen and go, yeah, that's exactly what I thought. No shit, that's what you thought. That's exactly why they made it. It's an agenda movie. There's no sense of fairness. There's no sense of balance. There's no examination of real life struggles. It's just a rant, and an incredibly mean-spirited rant just because this was originally written by Max Landis, who, yeah, is a douchebag and a pig, and I really do hope that he gets everything that's coming to him. That's no reason to turn this movie into a rant when that clearly wasn't the case. It was clearly supposed to be just a fun B-movie, which even that can't accomplish, because as much as they try to distance themselves from him as a writer, they still feature a lot of genre conventions, or this mishmash of genre conventions almost in a Tarantino fashion, that Max Landis does. The fact that it's a World War II action horror monster movie, and the action set pieces are sent to current day dubstep, which takes the suspense out of all of them because you can't take your mind off the fact that the music and the scenery just do not match whatsoever, and they are completely overblown. The most exaggerated action set pieces that even Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and Bruce Willis would say, yeah, whatever, that wouldn't happen. Seriously, I can imagine them saying that would happen. I can imagine Sigourney Weaver and Michelle Rodriguez saying that this stuff wouldn't happen. That's not really a good sign, folks. It felt like a total mess. And the fact that they're completely open about the fact that they rewrote this script 5 times, Moretz even contributed, that doesn't really help. I do hope that Roseanne Liang as a director makes better content in the future, because as I said before, she is a good director, and there are a couple scenes where it does show. but she's so fixated on fixing or adding in a message to the movie that, in the words of Jeremy Jahns, this is not a movie with a message attached to it. It's a message with a movie attached to it. And I'd be okay with that at the very least if the characters were likable. Chloe Grace Moretz is not a likable character in this because, without spoiling anything, she's surrounded by sexist men who instantly think that she lies about everything, and that part is bad. But here's the thing. We later find out that she is, in fact, lying about a lot of things, and she is proving them right for the wrong reasons. I get that they give her a motive where she really did have no choice and that she had to survive at all costs. But if you're making a movie about men who make false assumptions against their female coworkers, this was the worst possible story you could have had that would have that message or parable attached to it. It's just so fucking stupid. I'd have more energy if I didn't make my best of the year list before making this video, because I saved my energy for that, and for damn good reason. Bottom line, Shadow in the Cloud is just a rant. It's not really a movie, and that's why it's the worst movie that I saw in 2020.
Number one most hated movie of the year is the reboot movie Fantasy Island. You saw this coming a mile away. I've been a big fan of Ricardo Montalban and Nick Dack from Man with the Golden Gun, I call him, for a long time, and I enjoyed the original Fantasy Island. I thought this could be fun. So I went to the theater in January. I should have saw this coming. I did this back-to-back with Bad Boys 3. And basically, Fantasy Island is an island where you go and get your wish granted, and all the characters show up to the island. We have no-name person number 1, no-name person number 2, no-name person number 3, no-name person number 4, and no-name person number 5. You get the idea. This is directed by Jeff Waldlow. I don't know. That's just what IMDb told me. And they all go to the island to get their wish granted, but nothing goes as planned. So Ricardo Montalban's character is played by Michael Pena, Mr. Rourke, who is the only redeeming quality of this film for me. It's not shot very well. It's sort of shaky at points. And it all leads to this very, very confusing finale. Because the first act is fine. And the second act, you're like, oh, this is not going someplace good. And then the third act is like, I'm sorry, what? So I'm going to explain this to you now. And then you tell me why you would put this in a movie. So, the main girl, played by Lucy Hale, Melanie, was supposed to go on a date with a guy who died in a building. So she invited the firefighter, who didn't save him in time, the roommates, who did not save him because they were out doing legitimate things, and other people and the person who watched the fire, basically. And she's like, it's all your fault, he's dead, and I did not get to go on a date. That is the twist. That is it. But wait, there's more. There should not be more to this twist. Apparently, Mr. Rourke, I think that's his name. Mr. Rourke, yeah, that's the name. Mr. Rourke is keeping his wife alive by sacrificing people to the island, which they never explore. Oh, and also she tortures her childhood bully, because that's a thing that happens randomly, even though that, I guess it doesn't, I don't know. So this movie gives you like 10 twists at the end, with no character development, in a poorly written script with scenes. They could have had something really great with this, because original Fantasy Island is, the concept is you go to the island, you get your wish granted, but your wish is not always what you think it is, and you always learn something coming back from this, making yourself a better person. This is a tale of revenge for a Tinder date gone bad, I guess? And saving your wife, I don't know, you gotta let her go or something. And he's gotta remain on the island. I don't even know, man. Anyway, that has been my list. Thanks for joining me on the Josh and Tyler Show. Tyler, take us out. Say something awesome. Promote your stuff. In the meantime, while I get ready for that, let's read a few more pages of the Arctic. What is this? The Arctic Patrol Mystery. Frank and Joe will Starland. Yes, it's top secret.
Guys, thanks as always for watching. Glad I could get some of that stuff off my chest. Thank you to Josh for giving me that opportunity to get that stuff off my chest. Let us know in the comments below what you guys thought were the worst movies of 2020. Feel free to mention how much you disagree with our opinions on Chicago 7, Devil All the Time, Wendy, among many others. I mean, you have every right to. It's not going to change our opinions, that's for sure. Feel free to let us know in the comments below. Be sure to stay tuned for more videos in 2021 on Josh's channel and on mine as well. And be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.